It's so nice to see all of you here tonight as Reverend Susan, Nason, and I explore the relationship between two great saints and mystics, John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila. Susan, would you like to open us?
Thank you so much. And good evening, fellow seekers. It's so good to see all of you tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Reverend Christopher and I have planned an evening of music, meditation, storytelling, and a small group gathering, though, because we're small, we'll do it together. As we tell the story of the transcendental friendship that existed between St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila. It is a remarkable story, fraught with intrigue, mysticism, hardship, hope, and redemption. I'm very excited to share with you tonight a few of the things I learned about St. Teresa of Avila. Carolyn Meese writes in her book, Entering the Castle, as an abbess and a nun, Teresa was known for her beauty, charm, and administrative skills, and her take-no-prisoners form of spiritual direction. The physical facts of her life are these. Famous in her lifetime for her wisdom and visions, she was born in Avila, Spain, on March 28, 1515, and died on October 4th, 1582. Her family were conversos, Jews who had publicly converted to Catholicism during the Inquisition. And Teresa became the patroness of Spain. She was canonized a saint in 1622, and in 1970 was made a doctor of the Catholic Church, the most respected title given to a scholar, theologian, or mystic for his or her contribution to Christian enlightenment. Ms. Meese goes on to say, Teresa's spiritual biography is far more intriguing. Her intimate spiritual relationship with Jesus inspired many nuns to adopt the practice of wearing wedding bands upon taking final vows as a symbol that they were brides of Christ. Yet, like many mystics, Teresa did not begin her life with a burning desire to have a mystical relationship with God or to even be a nun. As a young girl of 12, she was sent to a convent by her father for education and discipline after the death of her mother. During her 18 months with those nuns, whom Teresa found particularly loving and spiritually devoted, she felt called to the monastic life. At the age of 18, she entered the Carmelite Order of the Incarnation against her father's wishes. But later in his life, inspired by his daughter's example, her father also became devout. In her autobiography, Teresa dismisses most of those first 2 decades of her life as a nun, writing that she neglected God and was attracted to the social life in the convent. Spanish through and through, full of music, Teresa loved to play the tambourine and drums, sing and dance, and she also loved food. She loved cooking it, and she loved eating it. And I'll add that on a personal note that she was a woman after my own heart. Again, referring to Carolyn Meese's Entering the Castle, she writes, God reveals to Teresa that the divine has no sexual identity or gender. It is consciousness of light. For a 16th century Catholic nun, this was heresy. God also revealed that the nature of the divine has 3 expressions: knowledge, power, and substance. All physical teachings are but symbols for a much greater truth. This dismantles the patriarchal view of God completely. It also shows us that the divine to be a universally unifying force, both cosmic and intimate, that transcend Christian views and can underlie any religion. I'm wondering, perhaps this planted a seed all those many years ago for our very own One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. In the foreword of Eric W. Vaught's The Complete Poetry of St. Teresa of Avila, the Archbishop of Manila, Jamie L. Cardinal Sin, explains the nature of Teresa's poetry. The poems of St. Teresa always speak of God. They speak of him as something as natural as the air one breathes. She does not tender fanciful arguments to prove that God exists. Her poems express to us the reality of God himself because she herself has found him. Let's hear a few of her poems in her clear voice. This one is entitled, I Have Surrendered and Given My All. I have surrendered and given my all, and the trade I have made is such that my beloved is all for me, and I am all for my beloved. When the sweet hunter shot me and left me vanquished in the arms of love, my soul, in falling, was gaining its new life. Such is the trade I have made, that my beloved is all for me, and I am all for my beloved. He pierced me with an arrow dipped in enamoring herbs, and my soul became one with her creator. Now I want no other love, for I have surrendered myself to God. My beloved is all for me, and I am all for my beloved. And this one entitled, Christ Has No Body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the eyes through which it is to look out, Christ's compassion to the world. Yours are the feet with which he is to go about doing good. Yours are the hands with which he is blessing to men now. Here's the last one. Laughter came from every brick. Laughter came from every brick. Just these two words he spoke changed my life. Enjoy me. What a burden I thought I was to carry, a crucifix, as did he. Love once said to me, I know a song, would you like to hear it? And laughter came from every brick in the street and from every pore in the sky. After a night of prayer, he changed my life when he sang, Enjoy me. I hope you found this short introduction of St. Teresa informative and interesting. I'm now going to turn us over to Reverend Christopher so he can introduce John of the Cross to us as we learn about him and his transcendental friendship with Teresa.
Thank you, Reverend Susan. That was really beautiful, especially Teresa of Avila's poetry. John of the Cross was born in 1542. All was not well in Spain in the mid-1500s. This was a time of great suffering because of the Inquisition. But he was born to a poor family that loved him and loved the church. His parents, too, were conversos. His father, most likely of Moorish blood and also of Muslim faith, and his mother, most likely of Jewish heritage. Together, they converted to Roman Catholicism, and they raised their boy, John, in the church. When John of the Cross was 25 years old, he met the 52-year-old Teresa of Avila. John was already an ordained priest in the Carmelite order, and Teresa was a great reformer in that order. At 52, Teresa was very accomplished and known throughout the monasteries of Spain. She wanted them to return to contemplative life, to centering prayer, to poverty and to obedience. The convents and the monasteries at the time, despite the oppression brought on by the Inquisition, were quite racy for their day, hosting teas and welcoming nobility into the cloister. She wanted this to change, and John believed in her and believed that there was room for much reform among the Carmelites and the men's orders. Together, they began to write rules and write poetry and write prayers, all focused on bringing their communities back to God through contemplation. It is said that thousands of letters were written between them as Therese was in her convent and John traveled from convent to monastery, spreading the news and the rule of reform. Most of these letters were lost, many of them burned upon the death of Teresa of Avila, for fear that they would fall into the hands of the Inquisition and sully their reputations. What we do have, what remains to this day, are beautiful nuggets of the relationship between the two spiritual friends. Perhaps the most touching story, and the one that gives rise to John of the Cross's magnificent poem, which is known as The Dark Night of the Soul, but The Dark Night of the Soul was actually the commentary on the original poem, which was called The Song of the Soul. Before I recite that poem to you, I want to give you a little bit of insight into translations and biographies of the works of John of the Cross. I focus on those by Mirabai Starr. Mirabai Starr is a member of the One Spirit community, a scholar and an interfaith minister like many of us. Her translation of the biography of John of the Cross and his poetry are the first done by a woman and a non-Catholic. They're beautiful, they're touching, and they were released and published to wide acclaim despite the great criticism she received from some corners of the Roman Catholic Church. But it can't be denied that she captures the spirit of John of the Cross in her translations of episodes of his life and his poetry. The story I'd like to share with you first is how one day, when he was 29 years old, a group of friars who disagreed with the reforms that he and Teresa were trying to accomplish kidnapped him and entrapped him into a room which was used as a latrine in the monastery. It was no larger than a tight closet where he had no room to neither lie down or to sit down. He had to stand. He was given one meal a day, if that, no access to bathing or a change of habit. One day, as he realized that he needed to express his pain, a kind guard, one of the young friars, smuggled some paper and some charcoal into him, and he was able to jot down poetry and letters which he had sent to Teresa. Teresa, realizing the anguish he was suffering and the situation he was in, helped. One day, miraculously, he was able to tie together shreds of cloth and somehow squeeze himself through the bars of the small window, shimmy down the walls of the monastery where he had fallen to the ground and rolled, only to be met by some wild dogs who led him to a group of friars who were friendly with Teresa, who took him to a convent nearby, nursed him back to health, and brought him to Teresa's convent, where she looked after him until he was fully healed. Mirabai Starr writes of this episode. She says of John of the Cross, malnourished by childhood poverty, John's growth had been stunted, and as a 25-year-old man, he stood barely 5 feet tall. After her first thrilling encounter with him, Teresa declared that while he might be small in stature, John of the Cross was great in God. She referred to him as a friar and a half, and considered him to be the father of her soul. John was the only man who ever fully understood Teresa, and she rested deeply in his understanding. John of the Cross joined Teresa of Avila's cause, and she immediately made him confessor to the nuns of her first convent. John paid a high price for his devotion to Teresa and her reform movement. At 29, he was captured by a group of mitigated Carmelites, and after 9 months of incarceration and torture, he made a miraculous escape, tying shreds of knotted cloth into a rope, lowering himself through a tiny window of his cell down the walls of the monastery. Uncertain where to go, he followed a pack of dogs who led him to a nearby convent of Teresa's, whose nuns joyfully gave him sanctuary. Teresa and John of the Cross forged their reform movement and made a lasting impact on the Roman Catholic Church and on religious life for centuries. In this transcendental friendship, theirs was a lasting love based on spirit, based on contemplative prayer, and based on the belief that God was within them and saw them. John's famous poem, Song of the Soul. I would like to read it for you, and I'm going to read you Mirabai Starr's translation. But remember, this is the poem that Teresa and John's friends asked him to write a lengthy commentary explaining to them what the meaning behind the poem was. So beautiful in words and thoughts, but what did he really mean? And that's where the book, Dark Night of the Soul, and our understanding of Dark Night of the Soul comes from. But here's the poem itself, not very long, but beautifully translated and written by Mirabai Starr. Song of the Soul. On a dark night, inflamed by love longing, oh exquisite risk, undetected, I slipped away. My house at last grown still. Secure in the darkness, I climbed the secret ladder in disguise. Oh exquisite risk, concealed by the darkness, my house at last grown still. That sweet night, a secret, nobody saw me. I did not see a thing. No other light, no other guide than the one burning in my heart. This light led the way more clearly than the risen sun to where he was waiting for me, the one I knew so intimately, in a place where no one could find us. O night that guided me, O night sweeter than sunrise, O night that joined lover with beloved, lover transformed in beloved, upon my blossoming breast, which I cultivated just for him. He drifted into sleep, and while I caressed him, a cedar breeze touched the air. Wind blew down from the tower. wind blew down from the tower, parting the locks of his hair. With his gentle hand, he wounded my neck, and all my senses were suspended. I lost myself. I lay my face against the beloved's face. Everything fell away, and I left myself behind, abandoning my cares among the lilies, forgotten. Susie?
Christopher, thank you. I love listening to you read it. And it's such a remarkable story about such a deep spiritual connection between two people that dramatically changed the course of their lives. I also find it so interesting that the fact that he was malnourished and tiny is probably what saved his life later on. So many of us are familiar with the poem, Dark Night of the Soul, or is it Song of the Soul?
Song of the Soul, yes.
Thank you. And what Christopher and I want to do right now, he's read it for you. David's going to put it up as a text that you can pin and enlarge. And what we'd like to do is have you all participate in writing a new poem, creating something from what resonates to you from within this poem. So some of you who've done the gatherings before have done this before. If you could just put in the chat the lines or the phrase or the word that moves you from the poem. Great. So just put in the chat, please, the parts that resonate with you, and let's see what we can create from this already exquisite poem. Take a few minutes to do that. And I'm going to start reading. O night that joined lover with beloved, that sweet night, a secret. Undetected, I slipped away. Nobody saw me. I lost myself, abandoning my cares. This light led the way. I lay my face against the beloved's face. Let me read that one more time, the poem that we just created. O night that joined lover with beloved, that sweet night, a secret. Undetected, I slipped away. Nobody saw me. I lost myself, abandoning my cares. This light led the way. I lay my face against the beloved's face. And someone else added that again. I lay my face against the beloved's face. My house at last grown still. Oh, exquisite risk. Among the lilies, I lay forgotten. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. And what I would like to do now is lead us in a guided meditation. That was just beautiful. Sorry, I'm just scrolling to it. So find a comfortable place to sit as we begin our meditation. If you're comfortable doing so, please close your eyes or lower your gaze. As your eyes close or lower your shoulders, relax your hands and feet, and let your breath flow gently and naturally. A soft breath in and a soft breath out. A soft breath in and a soft breath out. Breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your nose. And now allow your exhale to be longer than your inhale. Gently inhale, a longer exhale. Gentle inhale, longer exhale. Imagine yourself about to begin a journey of deep awareness. As you begin this journey, know that you are cared for by our gathering, by everyone in this community tonight. In your mind's eye, begin to think of any impasses, hardships, challenges, disappointments that have arisen in your lifetime. Is it a thought, an action, a habit, an addiction, a person? Wait patiently as this takes shape and just allow the experience to merge in its own time, in its own way. As you feel it take form, know that while you are on this journey, know that in this moment, you have power over your experience. It will be a challenging journey, one that you will be able to explore and find your own way along the path. Has it taken shape yet? Does it have a name or a feeling or a face? Just sit quietly until it appears, allowing any discomfort that arises. You may see an image or hear a sound, feel a sensation or an emotion. Welcome it all. In your mind's eye, see yourself starting out on a winding path. A path with clinging vines reaching out as if to trap you. A path with pitfalls and traps, impasses that seem daunting. An arduous path that winds and twists, rank with musky odors of decay. Soon you notice that the path turns downward and begins to wind through brambles. A jumbled patch of thorny branches grabbing at you, scratching you, irritating you, and slowing you down. You try to avoid the thorns, the irritating branches, and the thick undergrowth all along this troubling path. You struggle to move forward, hoping that the path will soon clear. Not quite knowing what to do to help yourself to avoid the pain of the brambles, perhaps you turn to prayer, asking for divine intervention to help you on this difficult path. Or perhaps you ask the universe to intervene. Perhaps you know you can rely on yourself as you make slow progress along this difficult path. You push on, relying on your faith in God, Goddess, the universe, yourself. Soon you see yourself clearly navigating through this unpleasant experience, finding ways to take care of yourself more and more, watching out for the thorns, ducking and swaying your body to avoid them, knowing which steps to take so you no longer stumble through the brambles and undergrowth. You see yourself deciding what will serve you best to avoid the pain of the thorns, to avoid the confusion of the jumbled path, to avoid the danger of the thick undergrowth. You soon notice that if you move ahead with clear intention, the path begins to ease. And soon you will leave behind all that is trying to trap you, confuse you. Your faith in God and in yourself allows you to navigate to a path that will lead you to safety, security, and ease. You will decide what serves you and what does not. You have made space for the pain, and now you are ready to move on. As the path begins to gently incline, you encounter fewer and fewer obstacles. And then, in your own time, you see a clear path ahead. It gently winds and slopes upwards to a lush, colorful, fragrant garden. Which attracts you more? The lush greenery, the vibrant colors of the lilies and other flowers blooming before you, the smell of the delicious fragrances wafting in the air. Moving slowly now on this gently winding path, you are grateful for having gone through the difficult journey. You know now that you have the ability to do this anytime you need to. And in your own time, take a deep breath. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your nose. And perhaps the last line of the poem comes to mind. I went out from myself, leaving my cares forgotten among the lilies. And as you begin to ground yourself, come back into the room, open your eyes. And when you are ready, and if you are so moved, please share what your experience was with the gathering, with the poem, with the meditation, with the exercise we did with the poem, whatever comes to mind. If anyone has anything they want to say or add.
I wrote Awakening to Greater Wholeness.
Thank you.
I would say exquisite respite from the busyness of the day.
Thank you.
I'm having a lot of trouble speaking at all. It was so beautiful.
Thank you. And Rabbi Eva wrote, we have so much to learn from the ancestral mystics. Oh, I lost it just a sec. It is all about love. Love of God, love of the other, love of the essence of ourselves. It's so true. Thanks, Eva. I remember reading a line of John of the Cross, and I feel it this evening. I cannot say that. So if whoever put that in the chat would like to say it.
¿Dónde te escondiste, mi amado? Where
Thank
have you hidden yourself, my love?
Thank you. So we have come to the end of what we prepared. We could all stay on and visit.
Josh?
I want to thank you for doing something that perhaps goes back to my childhood. I'd like to be read to. And the idea of having poems read to me as opposed to reading them myself and enhance it with music, it was like, I just loved the journey that I was on that I can't do by myself. You know, that it has to be someone reading to me. But I think it goes back to child. I loved being read to as a child, you know, so thank you for sharing that. At some point, it might be fun to hear you each switch so that you were, the male is Teresa and the female.
Oh, I didn't even
is,
think of that.
The female is John, because I I just would like it. I mean, I just would like to hear it with different ears. And I was very conscious of hearing a male and a female talk in the voice of a male and a female, but it would be an interesting exercise perhaps to hear it switched or whatever. But thank you for bringing back, telling me a story. I love that. Thank you.
I'll read to you anytime, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Susie, we have time. Do you feel up to reading the poem complete?
Sure. Do you still have it up?
I'll put it up again.
On a dark night, inflamed by love longing, oh, exquisite risk. Undetected, I slipped away. My house at last grown still. Secure in the darkness, I climbed the secret ladder in disguise. Oh, exquisite risk. Concealed by the darkness, my house at last grown still. That sweet night, a secret. Nobody saw me. I did not see a thing. No other light, no other guide than the one burning in my heart. This light led the way more clearly than the risen sun to where he was waiting for me, the one I knew so intimately in a place where no one could find us. Oh, night that guided me. Oh, night sweeter than sunrise. Oh, night that joined lover with beloved, lover transformed in beloved. Upon my blossoming breast, which I cultivated just for him, he drifted into sleep. And while I caressed him, a cedar breeze touched the air. Wind blew down from the tower, parting the locks of his hair. With his gentle hand, he wounded my neck, and all my senses were suspended. I lost myself. I lay my face against the beloved's face. Everything fell away, and I left myself behind. Abandoning my cares among the lilies, forgotten. Thanks for that invitation, Josh and Chris.
Thanks for your reading, Susie. It was wonderful.
Thank you. So if anyone has anything else they want to add, or if people just want to visit, we have about 10 more minutes together. And while you're thinking about participating, I want to tell you why I picked this topic. I invited Christopher to do this with me. I asked him if he would do it with me because I'm in an amazing spiritual sangha with him Wednesday nights that he leads. And he told this story about John of the Cross that I had never heard before. I really didn't know much about it. And I was so moved, first of all, by Christopher's presentation and by the story that I wanted to share it with as many of you as came tonight. So thanks for joining us so I could hear the story again.
And thank you.
There's this song that I really enjoy. It's one of my favorite songs by Lorena McKenna. I've put the information in the chat.
Thank you.
And I've always wondered what was behind it. And it's amazing that this, I mean, I can see how the words almost match, and it has to be the same story. So.
Oh, I'll be sure to look at that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I was just going to say thank you to Susan for inviting me to do this with her. And, you know, John of the Cross has always been one of my favorites, and Mirabai Star really lit him up for me. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to bring both Teresa of Avila and John of the Cross and Carolyn Meese and Mirabai Star to you all tonight.
And thanks, David, for making this run so smoothly as usual. Oh, Lynn, hi.
Me, Louisa.
And Louisa, yes, I saw you before. Oh, there you are.
Here I am. Hi.
Hi.
When I used to go to Catholic school, I picked Saint Teresa of Avila as my saint for my confirmation. And it was interesting in this meditation, I could feel her energy and I didn't know about St. John of the Cross. So I'm really thrilled to have learned about him today. Thank you, Christopher, and thank you, Susie. But I could feel how beautiful their love was. And you're not supposed to love the priest, and the nuns aren't supposed to love the priest, and the priests aren't supposed to love the nuns. But I always figured that they did love each other on a very spiritual, beautiful level. Having gone to Catholic school, you could see, the energy between them. So so glad that you introduced me to this, because now I know I love them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
And if you read the book, The Inner Voice of Love by Henry Newen, that probably gives a lot more context to the way in which they might have loved each other. I just happen to have read that recently.
Do you want to give us an idea of what it was?
Well, it talks about first loving God, and then that love then becoming, a bridge. I mean, essentially, since God is a bridge to everyone, that you can love anyone deeply and authentically. And so, and of course, the whole book is written almost like Tao Te Ching, because, there's a title, and then there's a few paragraphs, or maybe a page or two, and so it's just a fun book to read, and it really made a difference in the way I think about how I love a lot of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was attracted to the presentation tonight.
Great, thank you.
This is Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, how are you? Oh, I have, I can start my video. There we go.
There you are. Hello.
I always forget. I have a delightful little book. I've been waiting for this night for a long time. Thank you for pairing those two in their friendship. I have a delightful little book. Love Poems from God, 12 Sacred Voices from the East. Yes, right. And I looked in here, we have a few minutes left, and I would like to share something from Teresa of Avila. And it's called Feeling Desperate. The earth and sky will open their purse for you, and your life will change. If with all your heart, you say these words each day. Teach me, dear God, all that you know. One night I walked through the streets feeling desperate, in need of alchemy. A hooded priest passed by where there were no lamps. I could not see his face. I only heard these words that he kept repeating. Teach me, dear Lord, all that you know. I knew a treasure had entered my soul. I've always loved that one, and I wanted to share it.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Love it. That became my mantra for a while.
Thank you for
I can
sharing
see
that.
why. Yeah,
You're
very
welcome.
beautiful. Thanks. Oh, thanks, Molly. Molly, you and I are next. I'm sending you an email.
I want to ask a question. Has anyone ever looked into the possibility that the poems were written in a code between the two of them, that something might have been wanting to be said but couldn't, and in some ways they wrote it in a way that could be understood by each other, but not necessarily outsiders? And I'm saying that in a couple of contexts. One, the Spanish Inquisition and the rigidity in which the two of them had to function. Henry Nouwen, as Scott mentioned, he wrote things, but I know that many of them are in code, because he couldn't really talk about what he wanted to talk about. So he talked about things in a general way. And I'm not being elusive about that. He couldn't really talk about gay thoughts. It didn't fit. So he wrote other things, but you can read between the lines if you choose to. It's not like the work is diminished by not looking between the lines, but it's there if you want to see it.
Certainly something we talked about when Christopher did the Wednesday night Sangha.
The great pains to which his confreres took to get him to write the book that explains the poetry, because they felt it left too much open to the imagination, and they wanted to know how it related to his love for God and contemplative prayer. So he does spin out for a couple of 100 pages, the presence of the soul and the presence of the spirit and the presence of God and the different characters that emerge between the lines of the poem. But I believe that you're right, Josh, in that I think he purposefully leaves a lot open and unsaid, whether it was his impassioned love of God and Jesus as the embodiment of male love, or whether it was something else, we'll never know. Some people have suggested his passionate love for Teresa. Some people have suggested his inability to express love in any other way than the spiritual union of the soul and the spirit in this very erotic way. If you've ever seen the statue of Saint Teresa of Avila in, I believe is it St. John Lateran Church in Rome, that shows her with this beautiful male angel piercing her heart with a flaming arrow, and she just lies back in ecstasy on her face, tells its own story as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot there, and I like to think it's all there.
Yeah, and Henry Nouwen certainly talks about loving deeply, and regardless, and I've seen, I guess, memes or something like that that say it's not worth loving halfway. So just so maybe these passionate loves, or might look passionate when they're just deeply loved, or maybe deep love is a cover for passionate love, but maybe it doesn't matter.
Thank you, everyone. It was a wonderful evening that I spent with all of you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Glad that you enjoyed it.
Can I share? I have 2 minutes. Can I share a real short one from St. John of the Cross?
Absolutely.
I couldn't help it. In fact, in this book, he is right after Teresa. Okay, so it's called A Rabbit Noticed My Condition. I was sad one day and went for a walk. I sat in a field. A rabbit noticed my condition and came near. It often does not take more than that to help at times, to just be close to creatures who are so full of knowing, so full of love that they don't chat. They just gaze with their marvelous understanding.
One of my
Wonderful.
all-time favorite ones.
Is it?
I actually included it in my spiritual counseling manual, minister's manual.
Ah, and there's the picture
Oh,
of Saint Teresa of Avila with the
thank you,
angel
David.
piercing her soul
Oh,
Wow.
with the flaming
Yes.
arrow.
Great.
I'm not seeing it. I have to get gallery. Beautiful.
On the hook for dinner tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Good to see you, Yvonne and Elizabeth and Leslie and everyone else, Josh and Louise. Bye now.
Lynn, you look gorgeous. So
I'm the
good.
class of 2006.
Woohoo!
Whoa!
And 2016.
Oh,